What's a really awkward situation that everyone can relate with? Saying hello or how are you to somebody and getting 100% ignored. Worse when someone else you know is there too and notices you getting ignored. Not being able to pick up when someone else is completely disinterested in what you are talking about. You haven't said anything in 45 minutes. Are you okay? When you say a funny joke but all you get is silence. I did this on a Zoom staff meeting yesterday. It was worse online, somehow. Now you're that guy in the office, when you go for a hug but the other person goes for a handshake. So you start with a handshake but do a weird hug at the same time with your hands in each other's crotches. I just skip all that and go right for the crotch. When you are video chatting, start talking and because of the delay you interrupt each other all the time. Stop talking, start again, interrupt the other one, stop talking. Never-ending story. Ever drag your shoe across a tile floor and have it make a loud, wet sound, so everyone in the room looks at you, then you insist it was your shoe and try to make the sound again, but nothing happens? Yeah, that, and leather couches. And then you try to keep moving around to replicate it to show everyone that it's actually the couch, but it never does, so you're just sitting there avoiding eye contact. No, never happened to me. That awkward moment where you and somebody else try to let each other speak but you both try speak at the same time and just keep failing. That would be a Skype, Teams moment. It's happened to us countless times, especially since we're all now working from home. Sorry, go ahead. Silence. When you've had multiple interactions with someone but you can't remember their name but it's gone too far to admit you've forgotten it, so you just have to call them love or mate forever. I met this guy in my math class at the beginning of the semester and I never caught his name. We became friends and now it's the end of the semester and I still don't know his name. Not sure how to ask. I once got set up on a blind date by a friend. The guy was her brother. I unfortunately didn't catch his name, though. So when he shows up to pick me up, I'm like, you must be Elaine's brother. I'm Mama Cat 13, hoping he'd say his name. He didn't. We dated a few weeks before I saw a bottle for his asthma meds in his car and got his name from that. The fake smile on your face when you receive a gift. Wanted the Smash Mouth CD with All Star on it when I was a kid. My aunt wound up getting me the Lens CD with Steal My Sunshine on it. Apparently I hadn't heard the song yet back then even though it was all over the radio. My disappointment was immeasurable and my day was ruined. I faked a half smile. Decades later I love Steal My Sunshine and I should have been happy. When you're having a conversation with someone and you don't hear what they say so you ask them to repeat and they do. But you still don't hear it and ask them to repeat again and they do. And you still don't know what they said. Do you ask them to repeat again? Pretend you heard it and nod your head and hope it's an appropriate response. Stab yourself in the eye with a pen to create a diversion and change the subject. Just laugh, say yeah, and hope they didn't just tell you their dad just died. Haha, yeah. When you walk out of the store empty-handed, feeling like you've just stole something. It's worse if you make eye contact with the cashier, or worse, the security guy, and you went in the store with a bag from another one. You know it and I know it. You should go to jail. When your mom leaves you with some distant relatives whom you have never met. Bonus points if they say, do you remember me? No, because I was 2 months old when we met. I'm 40 in a few days, and my mum will still occasionally ask me if I remember bizarre relatives I've never heard of. Do you remember Brenda? No. You know, we went to her Dave's house for his son's christening. No. She came to our Darren's wedding. She wore a blue hat. No. Anyway, she's dead. Go to wash your hands and the water comes out at 1,000 miles an hour, splashing your crotch. You're of course at work. When someone asks what's going on, and you respond, good, you. How are you? I'm fine. What about you? Great. You. Could be worse. And you. When you reply to a stranger who says hello, but then realize they were on the phone and not speaking to you. Happened to me just yesterday and I didn't get in any sleep last night as I couldn't stop reliving the moment. AirPods have made this one so much more common. It's really annoying, especially if you work in retail. I used to go to college with a girl who got the same train home as me, and we would always walk to the train station together chatting. But as soon as as we sat down on the train, she would call one of her friends without warning and start talking to them on hands-free. So I always, every single time, thought she was talking to me and I'd reply, and she'd ignore me. Cringe every day. When you're walking and almost trip for no reason and look back at the invisible stick that you tripped on. When you're finishing up at the checkout and the cashier puts the notes on top of the receipt and then coins on top of that. Then the next person steps up and you're fumbling, trying to disassemble the stack in your hand. Gather your shopping, say thanks and move away at the same time. When I was a cashier, I made it a point to hand them their coin, hand them their currency, and unless requested otherwise, I would put the receipt in the bag for this very reason. Same here. A manager taught me that. I was so annoyed with him at the time, but now I realize what a good tip it was. Being at a friend's house as a kid and the friend's mother starts yelling at your friend. Being at a friend's house as a kid and the friend's father walks in only wearing underwear. The opposite as well. Having a friend over and your parents do this. Or worse, your parents try involve your friend in the argument, asking them if they would do that. Would their parents put up with it? So fucked up. When you try to contribute to a conversation and someone cuts you off multiple times, and you patiently wait for your turn to speak, but by the time the air is clear, the subject has already changed and what you were going to say is now irrelevant. I used to be a habitual cutter-offer when I was younger. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was just excited for what I had to say. I've reformed that behavior now, but if I notice this happening to someone else, I'll make sure to call attention to the person trying to talk. What was that, John? Or something along those lines to make sure everyone is heard. Watching a scene with your parents. Visited my aunt and uncle 7 years ago and we were hanging out watching TV. My uncle clicks through channels and stops on Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay. Within minutes is the shaved party scene. My aunt and uncle sit there in silence watching, not saying anything until the scene is over while I sweat bullets. If you put an acorn between my butt cheeks I could have cracked it. A few months ago I visit again. Uncle flips through channels. It's Starship Troopers. Within minutes it's a scene and the boobies are out. I'm not visiting anymore. And GT, I'm not visiting anymore. Went ahead and moved in. Then, walking through a doorway only to catch your clothes on the hand, have it slingshot you backwards. Happens only when you're angry. Same with trying to slam a door out of anger and it somehow gets magically slowed by the air resistance and it just closes a little harder than normal. When you're saying goodbye to someone, and then you both end up walking in the same direction. Or when you turn and walk into a wall with people watching. Also when you realize you've forgotten something and need to turn around, but you don't want to just turn around abruptly because that would make you look insane. So you do a little performance where you get your phone out, pretend to check a message, sort of mime aha, and then turn around, or cross the street and then turn around to throw any observers off the scent. I used to do that until I read a very similar comment on Tumblr. Now I just turn me around and go where I wanted to. Being called on to answer a question you really have no idea how to answer. I used to just say I don't know FML, can't speak for you, but whenever I said I don't know, my teachers would go on a rant and say something like, why don't you know, you should know, or the old classic, at least try. And then when I try, I say something stupid and everyone starts laughing and the teacher says that's not right, God bless, I'm not in school anymore. When you think someone waves at you so you wave back, but they were waving at someone behind you. Not long ago at church we were asked to turn and greet people. I turned around and the guy said hi to me and stuck his hand out to shake. I went for it and realized he was talking to the woman beside me. She and I both ended up with a hand in his hand at the same time trying to shake it. They both looked at me and I quickly turned around and pretended it didn't happen, which made it more awkward. And then rest of the service I couldn't stop laughing about it. This is standard for me. Awkward church laughter is the worst, especially if you're trapped between people and can't excuse yourself to leave and get a handle on it privately. Also particularly bad if it happens during a funeral. You ever clogged a toilet in somewhere that wasn't your house? Thank guys. My inbox is now clogged with all of your oversized stories. Can't wait to binge read all of it. Edit 2. Guys, please stop sending stories. I don't think my inbox could survive more of this. It's on intense medication RN. Oh man, I shot to pick her up for our first date. I asked if I could use her toilet before we left, and only had to pee. Speaking of, why doesn't everyone have a plunger? It's a common item, and there really isn't a reason not to have one. Most people I know have the logic that because clogs rarely happen they don't bother buying a plunger. That's like not putting an alarm in a bank because people barely break into banks nowadays. Standing there while two people talk about something you don't know about. Even worse when you're wanting to leave the conversation but feel like you need to have an excuse to leave. I have to and giggle. Let them figure out which is more awkward. When you're walking past coworker and you've already said hello earlier, everyone's making that weird flat smile. That walk down a long hallway toward each other where you've clearly seen the other person, but they're too far away to say something. So you do the awkward look around until you get close enough to say, hey, and keep walking. Edit. I work in an office above a warehouse and the hallway goes the length of the entire warehouse. It's like that never-ending hotel hallway in The Shining. There are departments all along the hallway so people come out of doors from each end. It's the worst to start walking from one end and someone comes out from a door at the other and I'm just praying inside they enter into another door before we get to each other, but it never happens. We always end up crossing paths, but until that point, I'm looking everywhere but at that person. Looking into other offices, pulling my phone out for no reason to look at it. The only savior is when you have a box or paperwork in your hands that you can focus on, and then, when the other person is within 5 feet of you, say hey and keep walking. It's utter misery every time I have to go into the hallway, which is a lot. When you're walking on a sidewalk with two other friends and you're the person that does not fit, so you have to stay behind them. Edit. Had a typoing behind. Also, someone gave me my first award on Reddit. Woohoo! Farting while coughing or sneezing. When you start to tell a story in a group but in middle of sentence realize that no one is actually listening and ever so slowly you get quiet and hope no one took notice. When they don't realize that you are getting quiet, at first you think, good, nobody noticed, but seconds later you start to feel bad that nobody was really paying attention to you, not even hearing that you were making noises, and that feels awful.